Welcome to the lineup, Officer Magazine's roundup of this week's police and law enforcement news. I'm your host, Joe Vince, assistant editor for Officer Magazine. And with me this week, Officer Magazine editor Paul Peluso. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me as always.
No problem. And as always, we have got a packed show, so we're going to get right into it. Starting off, our first story and probably biggest national story of the week in general comes out of Minnesota, where a tragedy, a state lawmaker there was shot and killed along with her husband, and another lawmaker was shot and wounded. This by an individual who apparently had dressed in attire that if not, was, a law enforcement police uniform, or at least was trying to look like that when this happened. That all, I mean, there are so many parts of this that are tragic. That part of it, though, is chilling, just in the sense of uh, especially nowadays, to throw that kind of now suspicion on law enforcement in the sense of you don't necessarily know if these are uh, imposters, and you hate to see that.
Yeah, no, of course. No, it's definitely a tragic incident. It's something that, we've seen this aggression towards, politicians. We've seen
Hmm.
aggression towards officers. Um, I do think, and I know we'll get into this story, but this story that you posted to the site about the officer that had a hunch that sparked the
Yeah.
manhunt for this guy. I mean, that's just I the great thing about Officer.com is that we post these stories about officers doing great things and using their training. And so yeah, this I think this adds added level to what the police were going through and how they were able to finally hunt this guy down.
And you bring that up there, Brooklyn Park police sergeant who just intuition of wanting to check on what I'm trying to it would be State Senator Hoffman and his wife, that this officer's shift was over, but whatever kind of inclination he had to sort of double check, could have made the difference as far as how quickly they were able to find this individual. It was a 43-hour manhunt. One of the things, and Paul, maybe you've seen some clarification on this too. There was some talk about whether or not this individual is wearing like a full face rubber mask. He's caught on camera, and
Yeah.
what appears to be that case. It just the links going through to kind of come across as someone he wasn't, just scary.
Yeah, and like they said in the story here, they were able to buy, you know, this officer's actions, kind of going off of his gut, going there after his shift is ended, and they were able to kind of surround him, and he fled. But by being there at that time, they forced him to abandon his car and a lot of his gear and weapons and stuff, and were able to track him down after that. So, um, it what is it? Yeah, the Drew Evans, the superintendent of Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, he said that, if this officer didn't do what he did, and if the police didn't do what they did, his rampage could have continued. So instead, they were able to hunt him down, which is good.
Yeah. Moving on to our next story. This is out of Florida, where video footage, security camera video of just a brutal and frightening attack on a Orange County sheriff's deputy. Um, that that the Orange County sheriff characterized as a fight for that deputy's life. A deputy was punched at least 20 times by a suspect who was trying to flee, dropped a bag that had was carrying two guns inside, was trying to go for his one of those weapons that were on the ground. And then, when the deputy tried to arrest the suspect just began punching the deputy in the face. Uh, Luckily, the deputy was injured, but was able to get away with his life, and the suspect was shot and wounded and was in stable condition when brought to the hospital. But uh, just the viciousness of the attack, I you never get used to it, but at the same time, just to keep, I'm still shocked at the brazenness of some of these assaults.
Yeah, and in this case, the officer was able to rely on his training, stayed in the
Hmm.
fight, and was able to to disable the suspect here. Um, and it's something, they can go back to their policymakers, lawmakers, and show a video like this and say, do you see what we're dealing with here?
Yeah.
And again, just commend the officer for staying calm under pressure and being able to follow through with it. Um, yeah, and in this case, the suspect didn't die. He's in serious
Mhm.
condition. He was able to disable him, arm him. He was going for his weapons, but you could show this to the public too, saying, look at what's going on here. Um, so yeah, no, I think it comes to having access to body camera videos, surveillance videos, stuff like that. It's just invaluable to police forces.
And I like what you said there too. The relying on the training, because in situations like that, it's not about thinking. It's about how you've you've trained and set your body up for that, and your mind set up for that, to where you can react in those situations and get out of that alive. So thankfully that was the case for this deputy. Moving on to our next story and jumping across country to the West Coast in California, where an interesting bill running through the California legislature. It would prohibit law enforcement officers, including federal agents, from wearing face coverings while on the job. And there would be, few exceptions in this case. Some of those would be for, SWAT officers, tactical officers, wearing masks for medical or safety reasons. Um, but clearly, bill created in response to some of raids that have been happening with ICE agents, and some of the pushback from the public, as far as agents, making it hard for people to identify them. The you know Federal officials saying that's for the agent's protection, but now for a state to actually set up a ban on it, I not even just at the federal level. Eh, I've got to think that locally too, law enforcement agencies wouldn't be too happy about something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, in the case of something like this, it may just be political grandstanding.
Hmm.
It's, one of those things where it's a hot but an issue right now. Yeah, I would assume that many law enforcement agencies wouldn't be that into this type of bill. It and at the same time, like the suspects can cover their faces. This isn't just for ICE raids, things that are going on right now. This would be anything. And it is nice that they have those caveats built in with because you think SWAT and riot gear, pandemics, the wildfires, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, yeah, I don't believe this is gonna fly. I mean, it might, who knows? But yeah, I would assume, and I know you ran a poll on this.
Yeah.
And I think this is great. Some of these polls that we're running along with these stories that, listeners out there, if, you're on the website and you see one of these polls, take it. It's kind of cool to see where people stand on issues. And what has the response been so far for this?
Let's see. I'd go back and have to go back and check. I
Yeah.
know, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but the overwhelming
Oh yeah.
response has been that this is a bad idea. And
Yeah, and
while oh,
Joe,
go
I,
ahead.
I just checked. It is a
Yeah,
93% no and 7%
there you
yes.
go.
So yeah, it's about what you would expect. But yeah, when you guys see these polls on the site, please take them. It's kind of cool. Some of them aren't as lopsided as this one, obviously. But I know we did like one was on best states to work in
Hmm.
type of thing, and had a poll to go along with that. So some of these are really interesting.
So yeah, and like you said, it seems like political grandstanding. At the same time, I feel like there could be enough of it could get pushed to where it becomes more of a reality. As instead of just simply a symbolic gesture. So we'll see. But you're probably right. It probably just stalls there. Moving on to our next story, we're gonna flip on back to the East Coast to Florida, where police department there has got a new policy when it comes to sick time. Miramar Police Department now is having supervisors visit officers who call in sick to check in on them. Uh, the department is saying that this is for the well-being and the safety of officers. I think the chief had pointed to an instance where an officer was I'm trying to see was found dead in their home, and that this is kind of to prevent that sort of not knowing what would happen to an happens to an individual if they're out sick. um However, the union finds this as an invasion to an officer's privacy, and the department overstepping its bounds.
Yeah, so the president of the Miramar FOP Lodge, what is it, 189, Brent Steffen said, it's amazing that you have police officers, again, from 1 year to 28 years who you don't trust enough that say that they're out sick, but you trust them enough to patrol and keep your community safe. So, yeah, the union's obviously not going to be for something like this. The chief is trying to, make a point that in some cases, and yeah, he recalled what was it, 2014, when a Miami police officer was fatally shot by his living girlfriend. No one called 911. And he's saying that if they had someone check in on him when he didn't show up for work, he could have been saved or people would have been
Hmm.
alerted earlier. But yeah, it's a lot of these issues are things for the union has a say on. And in this case, yeah, I don't think this is gonna go over too well. And then there's gonna be a lot of backlash. So yeah.
And while I don't think it's an apples to apples type of comparison, but it did strike me a little bit like as we, as we came back from the pandemic, the pushback to get back into offices, but just the idea of employers feeling like they have to keep an eye on their workers a little more. I again, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a an apples to apples comparison, but that was sort of jumped to my head when I initially saw this story. Uh, Moving on to our next story, and actually we'll stay in Florida. Where just it shows this story kind of illustrates just the different roles that law enforcement officers have. And this is a case where Lee County Sheriff's deputy responding to a 9-year-old girl who was involved with a shark attack where shark bit and partially severed her hand while she was snorkeling on a beach off the beach in Boca Grande. Um, Body camera video from this call shows actually it's not even so much the showing as even the listening to deputies comforting this girl after such a traumatic event and just to hear them trying, making sure that this is horrible for her, but they're going to try to get her through this the best way they can.
Yeah, and the deputy told the girl, you're being very brave, you're being very
Hmm.
strong. One of the deputies said, yeah, I see her hand hanging like a piece. There's blood
Ugh.
everywhere. Just trying to calm this girl down. She was definitely in a state of shock, and yeah, just all the stories that we've even covered today, you just see the difference of duties there. That you need
Mhm.
to fight for your life at one turn, and at the other, you're trying to comfort for this little girl who's essentially going to be, battling for her life. And in this case, hoping that they can bring back function to her hand there. She can be changed forever. So it's just, very stressful situations.
And just the compassion
Yeah.
and being able to be able to say that those comforting things in this moment while also having to do the practical side of it as well. So it's horrible that that the to have this girl go through this, but I'm glad she had these deputies there. Moving on to our next story. This is out of Washington, where I don't know that I've actually seen this technique used on a suspect, but a Pierce County Sheriff's deputy um, used used a rope and lasso to corral a suspect who had been wielding a chainsaw and had threatened his parents. And this individual had jumped into a nearby pond, and the deputy uh, used the rope to pull him in. I, it's a first for me seeing it. I don't know about you, Paul.
Yeah, I feel like we have to track this guy down and interview him about being able to lasso this guy. But yeah, kind of using all the tools at your disposal here. But yeah, congratulations to the deputy.
I wonder if that's a skill set, Pierce County. You guys like roping skills are part of what you need to have on your resume to get hired there. Uh, I'm just yeah, I didn't know if if he or if he's amateur rodeo rider or
Yeah.
something, but yeah, inventive, great way of thinking on your feet. And if you look at the story too on the site, you can see the body camera footage from this as well. So, and moving on to our final story. This is out of Missouri and St. Louis, and we had talked about the compassion. Those Florida deputies showing the girl in the shark attack. Here's another example of compassion and just the different roles that again, law enforcement officers have. In this case, St. Louis police officers, um, footage of the aftermath of a tornado that had torn through the area there. Excuse me. And not only do you see them picking up and cleaning up the area, but they are looking and freeing people who have been trapped by debris, by the rubble from these tornadoes. Um, uh, we have talked time and time again about how in calls like fires and what I'll term as disasters, police are a lot of times the first responders on the scene, and they have to be able to, um, handle these situations, whether it be a fire or in this case, whether it be dealing with, the aftermath of a tornado and, possibly having to get people, out from under wreckage or, just clearing up a neighborhood so that things can start functioning again.
Yeah, that's it comes to a lot of stories that we see about departments shutting down or less officers being out there, or departments having shortfalls when it comes to staffing. These are the times when it's a natural disaster, but you have no warning. It's a
Mhm.
tornado. It's not a hurricane. It's not a wildfire. It's something that happens almost in a split second, and you have to respond to it. And yeah, the fire department's going to get that call, and they're going to respond. But the officers out on patrol in that area are there. So yeah, these officers were able to spring into action, and like the story says, go through the rubble, help the elderly woman who was able to get to the hospital, and and yeah, it just shows if you have officers out in an area on patrol, it helps.
That wraps it up for this week. As always, thanks again for listening. Temperatures are starting to warm up, and while hoping everyone's enjoying the weather, obviously with the warmer temperatures, it comes um, people possibly behaving in ways that they shouldn't. So as always, stay safe out there, and take care.